Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alyson Grange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney to meet Trump in Washington today for the first time since his re-election. Says that he doesn't expect any immediate breakthroughs as tensions over tariffs and Trump's past calls to annex Canada continue to loom. A fresh barrage of Ukrainian drones forces flight disruptions at key Russian airports, including in Moscow. It comes just days before President Putin plans to host the victory parade under a temporary ceasefire. A wave of drone strikes hit Port Sudan for the third day in a row, knocking out power and damaging its airport. Port Sudan is the army-aligned government's eastern stronghold and was attacked by the RSF for the first time on Sunday. Myanmar's military junta announces a fresh ceasefire following a massive earthquake in March that killed nearly 3,800 people, but warns it will still respond to rebel offensives, even as the country braces for the monsoon season. And Poland accuses Russia of attempting to interfere in its upcoming presidential election on the 18th of May, warning of heightened cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns aimed at derailing its democratic process. Hello and welcome. We begin the show with Rwanda. The country is exploring a deal with the US to host deported migrants. Rwanda's foreign minister has confirmed that talks with the Trump administration are in the early stages. These discussions come when the US president is pushing a hardline immigration agenda. The details of the plan are still unclear, but if it goes through, Rwanda could become the first African nation to sign such a deal with the US. President Trump has launched sweeping immigration crackdowns since returning to the White House. He has declared war on undocumented immigrants, called them the most despicable human beings, and even offered $1,000 to migrants who leave the US voluntarily. Rwanda, for its part, has been trying to position itself as a destination for expelled migrants. It claims refugees in the country are safe and given options to rebuild their lives.
For more than 30 years, the Rwandan government and its people have worked hard to make this country secure. There's a wide range of options. You can become a refugee, a migrant, a resident, even acquire Rwandan nationality, or return home if you wish. You can also legally immigrate to Europe, Canada, or elsewhere.
But human rights groups disagree. They point to Rwanda's poor human rights record and warn that deported migrants may not be adequately protected. This wouldn't be Rwanda's first migration deal with the West. It already works with the United Nations to host African refugees evacuated from Libya. It offers temporary shelter while they wait for resettlement. Rwanda has also teamed up with Denmark to explore new approaches to asylum and migration, and was even linked to a secret migration pact with Israel. In 2022, Rwanda signed a high-profile agreement with the UK. The goal was to accept asylum seekers who had entered Britain via third countries. But the British Supreme Court ruled the plan unlawful, saying Rwanda couldn't be considered a safe country. Despite the ruling, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's government pushed ahead. In 2023, new legislation was passed officially declaring Rwanda safe. Yet, after all the political drama, only 4 people voluntarily relocated. The plan collapsed in 2024 when the Labour Party came to power and scrapped the deal. By then, the UK had spent nearly $950 million on the programme, and over $386 million was paid directly to Rwanda. Kigali has refused to return the money. Rwanda's talks with the US come at a sensitive time. The country is also engaged in peace talks with neighbouring DRC, and while Rwanda may be open to migrant deals, this one comes with a different kind of pressure. Trump has been taking a tougher line on countries that refuse to take back deported citizens. Just last month, Secretary of State Marco Rubio revoked entry for all South Sudanese nationals. It was after their government rejected one deportation. So what will Rwanda do next? Will it strike a new deal with America? Or will it hesitate, knowing the risks and political costs? Now, for more on this, we have with us on the show Nditya Bria Lionel, the editor and writer, Pan-African Review, and he is joining us live from Kigali in Rwanda. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what are the legal and diplomatic implications of Rwanda entering into a migrant deal with the US, especially in light of the failed UK agreement?
Well, one can assume that once an agreement is reached, most of the legal hurdles will be faced by the US. The US government will have to argue in its courts that the agreement is consistent with US law and international treaties to which the country is a party to. It will also have to convince the courts that it is safe to send asylum seekers to Rwanda, which will be the easiest path in my view, if the courts are not misled by international organizations that have a vested interest in keeping asylum seekers in the US. As you may know, many reports point to that Rwanda is one of the safest countries in Africa, and it is hosting many refugees, Burundian, Congolese, some from Libya, Sudan, and Tigray. On the diplomatic front, possible rapprochement between Rwanda and the US is good news, especially given the fact that the US is involved in trying to resolve the conflict in the neighboring country, Congo. And as many of us have pointed out, the US approach, the previous administration, was counterproductive. And we hope that this administration will continue to advocate dialogue rather than misguided sanctions against Rwanda.
Right. And why has Rwanda positioned itself as a preferred destination for deported migrants? And what are the domestic and international motivations behind this strategy?
Well, there are at least 2 reasons on the domestic front. One is that many of Rwanda's leaders have been refugees. They know what it is like to be rejected by the country you chose to flee to have no country to turn to. This experience informs their treatment of asylum seekers and refugees. And as one of the beneficiaries of this policy, I can attest to their commitment to ensuring that refugees are treated well within the means of the country. Second, many asylum seekers have skills that may not be attractive to an advanced economy like the US, but that are needed in a middle-income country like Rwanda that is seeking to industrialize. For these two reasons at least, Rwanda welcomes asylum seekers. On the international stage, Rwanda has sought to provide solutions to global challenges, whether it's climate change, security and peacekeeping, or the migration crisis now. So in a sense, Rwanda has become an influential African voice on global, in international discussions on global challenges.
And what safeguards should be in place to ensure the rights and welfare of migrants relocated to Rwanda under such agreements, given past criticisms of similar deals?
Well, I can think of three. Ideally, migrants should be able to choose the country to which they wish to go, provided that country agrees to receive them. They should have access to free legal advice once they are in that country. They should also have the means to support themselves for a specified period of time. Other safeguards, of course, will depend on the content of the agreement the US will have with third countries, including Rwanda.
Right. Thank you very much for being with us on First Post Africa.
Thank you for having me.
Shifting focus to the conflict in neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo, which has taken center stage in Qatar. Despite the involvement of multiple foreign actors in the peace talks, fighting with the Rwanda-backed M23 rebels continues on the ground. The M23 rebel group has continued its offensive in eastern DRC, despite the ongoing peace talks. Fighting was reported on Monday in the South Kivu province. Now, according to reports, the Congolese army was attacked in the mountainous, resource-rich Fizi region by an M23 allied group. Just a day earlier, the M23 captured the strategic fishing town of Lansenge in North Kivu province. Now, following clashes with the army that killed 17 people, including 7 soldiers. The violence comes as Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi agrees to sit at the negotiating table with the M23 rebels. Delegations from both sides are currently in Doha for peace talks. Now, this comes after President Tshisekedi and his Rwandan counterpart, Paul Kagame, agreed to a ceasefire in talks mediated by the Emir of Qatar in March. The DRC continues to accuse Rwanda of backing the M23 rebels. Parallel peace efforts are underway between the DRC and Rwanda, mediated by the United States. The U.S. Special Envoy to Africa, who visited both countries last month, says the two sides have submitted a draft peace proposal, which is a step towards ending hostilities and attracting billions in Western investment. The foreign ministers of the DRC and Rwanda agreed to the draft at a ceremony in Washington alongside the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The U.S. is pushing for a deal that could enable American and Western companies to invest in Congolese mines and regional infrastructure projects, including mineral processing in Rwanda. U.S. officials hope all 3 agreements between the DRC and Rwanda and Western investors could be signed in about 2 months at a ceremony attended by President Donald Trump. The M23 is not involved in the talks with Washington, and their onslaught on the ground continues unabated. Will the ongoing violence derail America's hopes of a mineral deal and a possible first peace agreement in Donald Trump's second term? And now we look at the North African nation of Morocco. Protests are mounting against the country's ties with Israel. Activists have been staging demonstrations at Moroccan ports. The stir erupted after reports of U.S. military cargo destined for Israel docking in the country. Cargo includes fighter jet parts and other defense components. Since the October 2023 Hamas attack on Israel, the US has ramped up military support. It has sent over $17.9 billion worth of advanced weapons and systems, including the Iron Dome. The cargo ship stopped in Morocco after being denied entry into Spain. The Tanger Med port offers strategic logistical advantages.
This march in Tangier is organized by the National Action Group for Palestine to highlight an essential point to Moroccan officials. Moroccans are against the docking of ships leaving the United States in Tangier on their way to the occupied Palestinian territories.
It is a cry out from the Moroccan people, through its driving forces, to send messages to all concerned and to express, repeat, and renew its condemnation of normalization and Zionist penetration, as well as its double condemnation of allowing ships of murder, massacre, and genocide to pass through and dock on the land of Tangier, the land of mujahideen and resistance fighters.
But their arrival sparked outrage among Moroccans who say the country's support for Israel is a betrayal. The root of this anger is Morocco's normalization of ties with Israel in 2020, which happened under the US-brokered Abraham Accords. In return, the US backed Morocco's claim over Western Sahara and promised a $1 billion arms deal. The Moroccan monarch has stood by Israel due to strategic support and US recognition. The deal also included a plan to open a US consulate in Dakhla, a move seen as recognition of Morocco's claims in the disputed region. While this brought political and economic gains, public resentment has grown, especially since the war in Gaza began. Activists, citizens, and religious figures have staged massive demonstrations at strategic ports. They are targeting ships believed to be carrying US military supplies for Israel. Morocco's largest port workers' union joined the call. It urged staff at Casablanca port to boycott a Danish cargo vessel, the Maersk Nexeo. Now, the union issued a statement and said that anyone helping the ship dock would be an accomplice in the genocidal war against the Palestinians. Support for the protests has also come from religious leaders. Scholars linked to the Islamist movement, the Al-Adl wa Ishan, who issued the fatwa condemning the shipments. With opposition rising at home, Morocco's stance on Israel may face even stronger pushback. We'll keep track of all the developments. And shifting focus to Uganda, where reports of a severe opposition crackdown are escalating. On Monday, a missing Ugandan opposition activist was brought to court. Now, he is Eddie Mutwe, the chief bodyguard of the main opposition leader Bobi Wine. He reportedly appeared in a limping condition. He was charged with robbery and remanded to prison. Mutwe had disappeared on the 27th of April after being abducted near the capital, Kampala. This by armed men, according to Bobi Wine's party, the National Unity Platform. The person who claimed responsibility for his disappearance is Uganda's army chief, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who is also the son of Uganda's longtime President Yoweri Museveni. In a series of tweets, Kainerugaba said that he had captured Mutwe like a grasshopper, was holding him in his basement and threatened him with violence. This is not the first time the military chief has made provocative statements. He has been dubbed Uganda's controversial king for his online outbursts. Earlier this year, he threatened to behead Bobi Wine. In 2022, his post threatening an invasion of Kenya forced President Museveni to issue a public apology. Despite his controversies, Kainerugaba is widely believed to be the likely successor to his 80-year-old father, who has ruled Uganda since 1986. But his rise has coincided with a growing crackdown on opposition ahead of the general election scheduled for next January. Bobi Wine and his legal team allege that Mutwe was tortured daily, including being electrocuted during detention. Uganda has come under international scrutiny for its treatment of opposition figures and human rights violations. Other cases include that of the veteran opposition leader, Kizza Besigye, who was abducted in Kenya last year and forcibly returned to face treason charges. Bobi Wine, a former musician, has emerged as President Museveni's most prominent challenger. Last week, he revealed that security forces raided and sealed off the party's headquarters as he was set to launch a protest vote campaign. With the opposition under siege and a crucial election just months away, can Uganda hold a free and fair vote? And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.